Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our job list page into this single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. So in this video, we are basically going to create this page right here using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So here we can also search for the jobs over here. And this is also completely responsive. So we're going to design this in this video, and I will also leave the link of the source code in the description. And in the end, I will also show you how to add this design to your Blogger website. Alright, so let's get started. In this video, we will start designing this jobs list page over here using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So here we can see that there are 6 jobs, and here are the details of the jobs, and you can add any link over here to this button right here, and when we click on these links, we'll be taken to that page. So in this video, I'll show you how to design this using HTML and CSS, and in the next video, I'll show you how to display all this content dynamically using JavaScript. Right here, I have created this folder called job list, and I just opened it with VS Code. And here I also have a folder called images, and in that we have all these images. So we're going to use these images in our design. So let's start by creating the necessary file. So let's click on new file, and let's create a new file called index.html, and let's also create a CSS file. I'll just name it style.css, and we'll also need to have a JavaScript file. I'll just name it main.js. Alright, let's start with the index.html file, and in VS Code you can just press exclamation and press tab, and you will have this basic HTML5 code. Alright, let's link our CSS file over here, and let's also link the JavaScript file. Alright, now let's start with the markup of our design. So the first thing we need to have is a container to hold everything. So let's create a division with the class of jobs list container, and in that we will have a heading first of all. So let's create an h2 for that, and here I'll just add a title. And the next thing we need to have are these different cards over here. So for that, let's create a container division, and let's give it a class of jobs. Now for each of these jobs, we'll create a division with the class of job. So let's create a division with the class of job. And the first thing we need to have is this image right here. So let's create an img tag. And for the src, I'll just type images / and just type softwareengineer.svg. The next thing we need to have is this heading. So for the heading, let's create an s3, and we'll also give it a class of job title, and here I'll just type software engineer. And the next thing we need to have is this details. So let's copy this text from here, and let's create a division with the class of details, and I'll just paste the text over here. And the next thing we need to have is this button right here. So for that, let's create an anchor tag, and let's also give it a class, and let's give it a class of details btn, and here I'll just type more details. Now here you can add the link of the actual job page. Right now, the last thing we need to have is this number of open positions. So let's create a span for that, and let's give it a class of open positions. And here I'll just type some text. And now let's open this in our browser, and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you install that, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And here we can see this is how it looks in our browser. Now let's go ahead and start styling this. So let's go to a style.css file, and the first thing we will do is we will style the container, which is this division with the class of jobs list container. So let's type dot jobs list container, and first of all, let's set a max width, and let's set it to 900 pixels, and we'll also add a margin of 20 pixels to the top and bottom, and auto for left and right, so that it's in the center. So if we just add a background color over here, we can see that the division is in the center. Alright, now let's add a font family, and let's set it to Rubric and sans serif. Now we also need to get the link of this font from Google Fonts. So here I'm in fonts.google.com, and let's search for Rubric, and let's click on this font, and we need to get the bold version and the regular version. So let's scroll down, and let's select this regular 400, and let's also select a bold version. I'll just select this one right here, bold 700, and let's click on this button called View Selected Families, And let's copy the link of HTML from here, and let's go back to our HTML file, and I'll just paste it over here in the head section. Right now, if you go back to our website, here we can see that the font family is being applied. Now the next thing we will do is we will style this heading. So the heading is inside the jobs list container division. So let's type jobs list container h2, and let's set the font size to 30 pixels, and we will add a border left, and we'll set it to 4 pixels solid, and let's set the color to 023047, and let's also add a padding to the left, and let's set it to 20 pixels. And this is how the heading looks. Right now let's style this jobs division right here. So let's go back, and if you go to the index.html file, here we can see we have this division with the class of jobs, and in that we have all the jobs. So first of all, let's type jobs list container jobs, and let's set the display to grid, and we'll set the grid template columns to 1fr 1fr 1fr, which means 3 columns with the same width. So here we can see now we have 1/3 of the width of the container division right here for this job. Let's go back to our HTML file, and I'll just copy and paste this job so that we can style everything correctly. So let's copy this and paste it a couple more times. And now we can see that we have all these jobs listed over here. Right now let's decrease the width of the image a little bit. So let's go back to the style.css file, and let's type jobs list container jobs img, and let's set the width to 60 pixels, and I think that looks alright. Right now let's style each of the job divisions. So if you go back to the index.html file, we have this division with the class of job. So let's target that. Let's type jobs list container job, and let's add a box shadow of 0, 4 pixels, 24 pixels, -8 pixels, RGBA 2, 48, 71, and 0.2. Now let's also add some gap between these jobs. So here for the jobs division, I'll just type gap, and I'll just set it to 24 pixels. Right now let's set some padding to this job. So here let's type padding, and I'll just set it to 24 pixels. And now let's have rounded corners. So I'll just type border radius, and let's set it to 16 pixels. Right now let's add a hover effect. So here I'll just type jobs list container job : hover, and let's type transform, and I'll just set it to scale 1.03, and we'll also have a smooth transition. So here I'll just type transition, and I'll just set it to all 400 milliseconds ease. Now if you go back, here we can see we have the hover effect. Right now let's style this open positions span. So here we can see we have this span with the class of open positions. Now we will position this span relative to this job division. So here for the job division, we need to type position relative. And now here for the span, let's type jobs list container open positions, and let's set the position to absolute for this, and we'll set the top position to 40 pixels and the right position to 20 pixels or 24 pixels, and let's set the color of the text to E63946, and now we can see it is styled correctly. Right now let's style this heading. Now for the heading we have this S3 with the class of job title. So let's type jobs list container job title, and for the job title let's set a font size of 20 pixels, and let's set the padding to 10 pixels and 0, and let's also remove the margin. So I'll just type margin 0, and let's also change the color of the text. So I'll just type color, and let's set it to 023047. Right now let's style this details division over here. So here we have this division with the class of details. So here let's type jobs list container details, and for this let's set a margin top of, let's try 6 pixels, and let's set the font size to 14 pixels, and we'll set the color of the text to 333, and let's set a line height of 1.8. Right now let's style this button. So for the button we have this anchor tag with the class of details btn. So let's type jobs list container details btn. And first of all, let's remove the underlines. So let's type text decoration and let's set it to none. And now let's set a border of 1 pixel solid, and let's set the color to 023047. And let's also change the color of the text. So let's tap color and let's set the color to black. Right now let's add some padding. So let's type padding and let's set it to 8 pixels top and bottom and 16 pixels left and right. And let's also add a border radius. So let's type border radius and let's set it to 8 pixels. Now if you go back to our HTML and if I just add some extra line of text over here, so if I just type something over here. Now if we go back to our design, here we can see that this button is at the bottom and this button is not at the bottom of this division. So for that we will change the display of this division to flex. So let's go back to style or CSS and for the job division, let's type display of flex. And we need to bring all of these one below the other. So let's type flex direction and column. And now we can simply go ahead and add a flex of 1 to this details division right here so that it will take up the maximum amount of space it can. So let's go back and for the details division, let's type flex and let's set it to 1. And now we can see that the details division takes up the maximum space and the buttons are at the bottom. Now let's go back and I'll just remove the extra text from here. Right now let's go back and let's add a margin top to this button. So for the details button, let's type margin top and let's set it to 20 pixels. Now let's also add a hover effect for the buttons. So let's type jobs list container details btn :hover, and when we hover over this we need to change the color. So let's type background and let's set the background to 02347 and let's set the color of the text to white. And let's also add a transition and let's set it to all 400 milliseconds ease. And now we can see that everything looks alright. And with that we have completed designing this page. Now let's also quickly make it responsive. So let's go back to our CSS and let's add some media queries. So I'll just type at media and we'll set a max width of 940 pixels. So when the width of the screen is less than 940 pixels, all the CSS inside this block will be added to our design. So let's type jobs list container jobs, and if you scroll up here we can see for the jobs division we have set a grid template columns of 1fr 1fr 1fr, which means 3 columns. So I'll just copy this line of code and let's scroll down and I'll just paste it over here, and instead of 3 columns I'll just change this to 2 columns. Now if you go back to our website and if I decrease the width of the browser window, now we can see there are just 2 columns when we are less than 940 pixels. Right now let's add one more media query. So let's go back and I'll just copy this and paste it down here, and I'll just change this to 640 pixels, and here I'll just change this to 1 column layout. And now if you go back to our website and if I decrease the width of the browser window, now we can see we just have 1 column. Now here we will also decrease the max width. So here I'll just type max width and I'll just set it to 400 pixels, and we'll also bring it to the center. So I'll just type margin 0 auto, and now we can see we have the correct styling. Now in this video we will see how to generate all this content dynamically using JavaScript. So we will not hard code any of this data into the HTML. We will generate all of them from a JavaScript array. Right, here's my source code, and in the HTML file we have already linked our JavaScript file over here. Now here for the JavaScript file we have a typo. I'll just correct this and I'll just change this to main.js. Right, now let's start with the JavaScript. So the first thing we will do is we'll create an array, and in that we will store all this data. So we will store the data of each of these cards as an object. So here we can just create a const called jobs, and we can just create an array, and in that we can create several objects, and in that we can have title and set the title over here, and then we can add another key value pairs over here, for example image, and add the image URL over here. And after that you can just add a comma over here and create another object and do the same thing over here for the next job. So I'll just go ahead and create this array, Right here I have created this array, and we have the title, image, URL, we have the details, and then we have the open positions and the link of the job. So all of those details are over here, and then we have the second job, and so on. And these images are over here inside this images folder. So now let's go ahead and let's see how to get this data from this array and how to add it to our HTML code. Now the first thing we will do is we will fix this number of jobs. So we need to display the correct number of jobs over here. Right now we have just set a random number over here. So let's go back and we need to access the heading. So if you scroll up, here we can see we have this h2 inside the jobs list container. So let's reference this. So here I'll just type const jobs heading equals document.querySelector, and here let's type jobs list container h2, and now here we can just go ahead and type jobs heading dot inner HTML equals, and I'll just add it inside backticks. And for the number of jobs, we have to get the number of items inside this array. So we have this array called jobs. So here we can just type $, curly braces, and here we can just type jobs dot length. So this will give us the number of items inside this jobs array, and here we can just type jobs. And now if we take a look at this array, we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 items. So if you go back to our website, here we can see it says 6 jobs. Now if we just remove one of these jobs from here, and now if we save this, if we go back, here we can see it says 5 jobs. So it is working alright. Now we need to also check one more thing, which is if we have one job. So if we have just one job, we need to display job instead of jobs. So let's do that. I'll just add an if condition over here, and let's type jobs.length equals 1. So if the job's length is 1, then I'll just paste this code over here, and here I'll just type job, and here let's add an else, and I'll just copy this line of code and paste it down here, and here I'll just type jobs. And now if you go back, here we can see it says 5 jobs, but if you remove all this from here, and if you just have one job, now we can see it says 1 job. So the heading is working alright. Now let's go ahead and write the code for populating these cards with the correct data. So I'll just copy and paste this array back. Right now the next thing we will do is we will reference the jobs container, which is this division with the class of jobs, because in that we need to add all these jobs. So let's go back to our JavaScript, and let's type const jobs container equals document.querySelector jobs list container jobs. And now let's create a function to display all the job cards. So let's type const, and I'll just name it create job listing cards. Now we need to loop through all the items inside this array. So let's use a for each loop for that. I'll just type jobs.forEach. Now for each of the single job, I'll just call it job. Right now let's create all these elements over here. So the first thing we will do is we'll create this division with the class of job. So let's type let job card, I'll just call it job card, equals document.createElement, and let's create a div, and we need to add a class of job for that. So let's type job card.classList .add job. Right now let's go back and let's create this image. So let's create an img tag. I'll just type let image equals document.createElement, and we need to create an img tag. Now in the img tag we need to have the src of the image. So let's type image.src equals. Now we need to set the source of the image to the source inside our array. So here we can see we have this key of image, and in that we have the link of the image. So I'll just access this image key from here. So let's type job, which we are getting from here, dot, and here we can see we have all these options. Let's select image. Right now the next thing we will do is we'll create this title. So we need to create an S3 for that. So let's type let title equals document.createElement s3, and let's set the title inner HTML to job dot, and here we have this title key, and we also need to add a class of job title to that. So let's type title dot class list dot add job title. Right now let's go back and we need to create this div with the class of details. So let's type let details equals document.createElement, and let's create a div, and here we need to type details dot inner HTML equals job dot details, and let's add a class of details. So let's type details dot class list dot add details. Right now let's go back and we need to create this anchor tag with the class of details btn, and we also need to add the href of the link of the job. So let's create an anchor tag. I'll just call it details btn equals document dot create element, and let's create an anchor tag, and let's type details btn dot href equals job dot, and here we have this link, and then we need to type details btn dot inner HTML equals. So if you go back to the index.html file, here we can see it says more details. So let's add that over here, more details, and then lastly we need to add a class of details btn. So let's type details btn dot class list dot add details btn, and then the last thing we need to have is the open positions span. So let's create a span. So let's type let open positions equals document dot create element span, and we need to add a class of open positions to this. So let's type open positions dot class list dot add open positions. Now in this we need to have the number of positions displayed. So here also we need to have this if condition, just like we did for the jobs heading. So if we have just one position, we need to display just position in singular, and if we have many, we need to display positions. So let's add an if condition, and let's type job dot open positions, which is a key right here inside our object. So here we'll just check whether the open positions is equal to 1, and if it is 1, then we need to type open positions dot inner HTML, and let's add backticks, and let's type $symbol curly braces job dot open positions, and here let's type open positions, and let's copy this line of code, and let's add an else over here, and here we need to add positions, and here we need to add just position. Right, that's basically it with all the elements. Now we need to add all these elements inside this job division right here. So we have already created this variable job card, which is the element with the class of job. So we need to type job card dot append child, and we need to add all these elements inside that. So first of all, let's add the image. So just type image and job card dot append child, and then we need to add the title job card dot append child, and then we need to add the details button open positions. So let's type details, and let's type job card append child details btn and job card append child open positions. And the last thing we need to do is we need to add this job card inside this jobs division, so which is the jobs container division, which is this division with the class of jobs. So let's type jobs container dot append child job card. Right now we can go ahead and delete all these jobs from here. So let's select all of these jobs, and let's delete all of this. And now let's go ahead and call this function, which is called create job listing cards. So let's call the function over here. And now if you go back to our website, here we can see all the jobs are displayed, and all the data that we see over here is fetched from this array inside our main.js file. Now if we go ahead and make some changes over here, so if I just change these open positions that we have over here to, let's say, 20, and now if we go back here, we can see it says 20 open positions. So that's basically how you can display the details of the jobs using JavaScript dynamically. Right, here's my source code, and the first thing I will do is I'll just create a text field. So let's create an input and we'll just give it a type of text. And let's also add a placeholder, and I'll just type search here. And we'll also add a class so that we can style it in the CSS. So let's type job search. Well, now if we go back to our browser, here we can see this is our search box. Now let's go ahead and style it using CSS. So let's go to our style.css file, and here let's type jobs list container job search, and let's set the width to 100%, and we'll also set a padding of 12 pixels top and bottom and 24 pixels left and right. And let's also set the font size to 18 pixels, and we'll set the font family to Rubik. Now here we can see, since we added some padding, the width is more than 100%. So for that you have to type box sizing and set it to border box. And now we can see it has the correct width. Right, now let's set the border. So just a border of 1 pixel solid, and I'll just set the color to 333. And let's also add a border radius. So I'll just a border radius, and let's set it to 8 pixels. And we'll also add some margin bottom. So I'll just type margin bottom, and I'll just set it to 20 pixels. Right, so that's basically it with our search box styling. Now let's add the JavaScript code. So let's go to our main.js file, and first of all let's reference this element with the class of job search. So here I'll just type const job search equals document.querySelector jobs list container job search. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to add an event listener to this job search. So here let's type job search dot add event listener, and we will listen for the input event. So this event will be fired every time we make some changes to this input field. So if we add some text, this event will be fired, and even if we remove some text, this event will be fired. So for now let's go ahead and check whether it is working. So I'll just display the search term in the console. Now we need to get the details of this job search, so we can add a variable name over here. So I'll just call it e, and I'll just type console.log, and here I'll just type e.target.value. Right, now this will get the value of the input field and display it on the console. So I'll just open the console, and let's type something over here, and we can see that the text is displayed over here. And if I remove something, we can see that the event is fired. Right, now that we know it is working, let's go ahead and let's store this search term inside a variable. So here I'll just create a variable, and I'll just call it search term, and by default I'll just set it to blank. And whenever we make any changes to this input field, I'll just store the value inside this search term variable. So here I'll just remove this, and here I'll just type search term equals e.target.value. Now the next thing we will do is we will call this function create job listing cards, which displays all these jobs over here. And we're going to add an if condition over here, and we're going to display only the jobs that includes this search term. So here I'll just type create job listing cards, and here for the for each loop, let's add an if condition. So here I'll just type if job dot title. So we're going to see whether the search term is in the title. So let's type job dot title dot includes, and here we will just add the search term. So it will see whether the search term is included in the title of the job, and if it is true, then we can just go ahead and execute this code. So I'll just add all of this inside this if condition. So here I'll just close the if condition. Right now, let's go back to our browser, and here if I just type software, we can see that nothing changes over here. But if you scroll down, we have the search results displayed over here at the bottom. Now that's because whenever we are executing this code, we are appending the elements. So all the search results are appended after these existing elements. So what we need to do is here, before this for each, here we need to remove all the code that is inside the container division, which is jobs container. So here we can see we have this jobs division over here. So we're going to remove all the content inside the jobs division, which we are calling jobs container. So here let's type jobs container dot inner HTML equals blank. Right now let's go back to our browser and let's search for one of these jobs. So I'll just type data, and here we can see that the result is displayed over here. And if I just type pro, we can see that project and product are displayed over here. But if we just type product in lowercase, then it will not be displayed. So for that, let's go back, and here where we are adding the if condition, I'll just change the text case to lowercase, and we'll do the same for the search term, so that it doesn't matter whether the user enters lowercase or uppercase. So here after title, let's type to lowercase dot includes, and even for the search term we need to change this to lowercase. Right now let's go back to our browser and let's search for project, and it is working. Let's search for capital P, and it is working. So we don't have any problems with the letter cases. Right, so with that we have added the functionality of search for our job list page. Right, here I'm in the dashboard of my Blogger website, and let's add it inside a post. So let's click on new post, and here I'll just add a title. I'll just type job list. Now the next thing you need to do is you need to change this into the HTML view. So if it is in the compose view, just click on this button and click on HTML view. Now here you can add the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first of all, let's add the CSS. I'll just create a style tag for that. And let's go back to our source code, and I will leave the link of the source code in the description. So let's go ahead and copy all of this code from here, and let's paste it inside the style tag. And here we can see we are using this font called Rubik. So let's also get the link of the font. So let's go back to our source code, and let's go to the index.html file, and I'll just copy the link of the font from here, and I'll just paste it over here. Right, the next thing we will do is add the HTML. So let's go back and let's copy this HTML code from here, and let's paste it over here. Now the last thing we need to add is the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag for that. And let's go back to our source code, and let's go to the main.js file. And here we can see this is the JavaScript. So I'll just go ahead and copy all of this and paste it over here. Now you can go ahead and make changes in your code. So here in the JavaScript, this is the list of all the jobs. So you can go ahead and change the job title, image, and all these things over here. And if you scroll down here, we have the JavaScript code. And here we are creating the job list card using the data that we have over here in the array. Right, let's go back, and now here we can see in the data, here we have the link of the image, and right now it is set to images / and the image name. But in our Blogger website we don't have this image, so we need to upload the image somewhere and get the link and paste it over here. So for this I will use a service called Cloudinary. So you can just go to cloudinary.com, create an account, log in, and go to this media library. And now here we can upload our images and get the link. So let's click on upload, and let's click on browse. Now here we can see all the images that we used in our project. So let's select all of these and let's click on open. And now here we can see all the images are uploaded over here. So let's go ahead and get the links of these images, and let's paste it inside our code. So first of all, we need to have the link of software engineer. So here's the link. I'll just click on this button to copy the URL, and I'll just paste it over here for software engineer. And in the same way, you can go ahead and get the link and paste the links over here inside this array. So I'll just quickly go ahead and do that. Right, so here I have updated the links of all the images. Now let's click on publish and confirm. Right now, let's click on the view button. And here we can see all the jobs are displayed over here, and let's see whether the search is working alright. So we can see that the search is working alright. Now here for the heading we don't have the right color, so here we can see we have this black color. So let's go back and let's make the changes. So here in the styles, here for the H2, I'll just type color and I'll just set it to black, and let's update this. And now let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And here we can see that the color is being displayed correctly, so everything is working alright. And let's see whether it is responsive. So let's decrease the width of the browser window, and we can see that it is responsive, so everything looks alright. Now you can just go ahead and add the link of this job page over here inside this more details anchor tag. So if you go back to your code and if you go to the JavaScript, here instead of this hash, you can just add the link of the job page. So for the software engineer job page, you can add the link of that over here, and then for the data scientist you can add it over here, and so on. So that's basically how you can add this job list page to your Blogger website. Alright, so that's it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below, and if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.